Thank you. Thank you very much for that very generous introduction. I often wonder whether you're talking about me or someone else. But thank you very much for being so kind. This is not the first time that I'm in St. Thomas College. During my time as the Vice Chairman of the Higher Education Council, I had the privilege of visiting your college. I still have happy memories of that. I'm grateful to Prep Academy for this matchmaking that is bringing me once again to your college. I'm grateful to them and thank you very much for inviting me. Well, this is the time when there is a transformation in the lives of young people. As the principal rightly pointed out, there is a huge change between your experience in school and your experience in the college or the university as it will be known. I think of my own experience as to how I came to Trivandrum for the first time to join a college. And everything was so different. It was very difficult for us to adjust ourselves. First to the medium of instruction. We shifted from Malayalam to English overnight without any preparation. And a new atmosphere, new friends, new teachers. Everything was so different. And for a few months at least, I was not sure where I was and what I was doing. There was really no induction program those days. Nobody bothered to tell us what was expected of us. And we had our own dreams, of course, and we pursued them vigorously. And that is why we were able to overcome that big chasm, that big divide between the school education and college education. But you must be already familiar with the surroundings, familiar with the style, familiar with the language, all this in the last few days that you have been here. So let me welcome you to this new life, full of expectation, full of promise, and full of, hopefully, happiness. But that brings me to the point that we are in exceptional circumstances today. This generation, my generation, for example, born after the Second World War, has never had a crisis of this kind. We hear about crises before us, but all the crises that took place, say, between the Second World War and today, did not involve us so much as this pandemic has done. COVID-19 has covered every human being, not only every human being, every living being, and every structure, every convention, everything has been affected by this particular virus. Why is it so? Because it's a matter of existence for humanity. You have crises of various kinds, but this is one crisis where we do not know how many of us will survive it. The number of people whom we have lost, the number of young people whom we have lost, the number of relatives that we have lost, number of friends we have lost, have all made us rather gloomy. And in the middle of all that, we had no opportunities to travel, to meet your dear and near ones, and all these have made life very difficult for you at this time. And coming to the college itself, in real life, was a question mark, whether we would ever be able to get back to the college campus. So you are facing a number of challenges, and I'm familiar with that. But I'll not go into that, because it's a time when we have to think in terms of hope, think in terms of dreams, think in terms of success. Of course, the topic is dreaming a successful life. That is very easy. You can just dream a successful life. But that is probably not what you mean by asking me to speak about dreaming a successful life. It is also planning a successful life. It is also achieving a successful life. I would even say that what you should be seeking need not be successful, but happy lives. There is a big difference, because happiness comes to you in your own mind. You sense happiness, while success is determined by other people. There is a big difference. And you cannot determine what the others consider you to be successful or not. And therefore, it is better to focus on happiness rather than success. Success brings you to happiness, and happiness brings you a sense of fulfillment. In fact, there is one country in the world which has been measuring success, measuring development on the basis of gross national happiness. I don't know if you have heard of this country. I have served there some years ago in the Himalayas, on the northern frontiers of India, somewhere between India and China. It's a little country called Bhutan. Not very highly developed in the sense that we understand development, because they still remain in a developed, but at the same time very primitive circumstances. Primitive in our view, but from their point of view, it's a success and it is happiness. So they taught the world to measure development by happiness. Gross National Happiness Index is what they say. And they stick to their traditions, they stick to their family ties, their clothing, their food habits all remain unaffected. Many of the young people come to study in India, particularly in Darjeeling, etc. And they are totally merged with the Indian culture and civilization. They are as excited about Bollywood as we are. And therefore, there is a very close link also between India and Bhutan. But the interesting thing is, while we want to be successful and developed and become, as Dr. Abdul Kalam taught us, to be in a developed country. He dreamt that we will be a developed country by 2020. But 2020 has passed and we are not yet a developed country. We are still a developing country, and we have many more things to accomplish to become a developed country. But he told us to dream about it, because dreaming is the first towards happiness. Because dreams have no barriers. It has no glass ceiling. You can dream about anything that you want. Whether you get it or not, whether you will be successful or not, whether you will be happy or not, is not the important point. The important point is what you will be dreaming about. Will you dream about a future which is brighter than what you have seen? Or will you dream out a future which would be worse than you have seen? Certainly it has to be a better future that we all have to have in mind. And that future may not be very clear to you. You may not know what to expect. You may not know what to believe in and how to move forward. But the first thing in life is to dream. And dream is not at all limited in any way, even if success is sometimes limited. Why did Dr. Abdul Kalam say that India will be developed in the year of 2020? He knew it very well that it will not happen. Because to become a developed country, India needs much more progress, much more economic growth, much more global influence, many more friends and associates who can depend upon. So it's a long way away. It starts with economic development, scientific development. It starts with the construction of the country, building the infrastructure, building the education system. All this we have been through. Thankfully, we had very good leaders of the freedom movement. And those leaders continued for many years to administer this nation. So the dream that they had in their mind when they thought of freedom, and those are the same ideas they try to emulate and bring about in the country. We were one of the poorest countries of the world when we became independent. We didn't have an infrastructure. We didn't have a system. We opted for democracy because we have had a long tradition of democracy in India, and therefore we had no option or we did not want to have any other system than a democratic structure where everybody participates, everybody has a role to play. Maybe if you had adopted a capitalist system or a communist system, maybe things would have moved faster, because there the leadership is in one hand or a few hands. While here, the whole population, the Constitution guarantees the freedom of expression, the freedom of action, the freedom of worship, whatever you need, whatever you want, are ensured in our Constitution. So some people may argue that by adopting a democratic process, perhaps we have delayed our development, but it is worth it, because we are seeing that wherever restrictions have been imposed on personal liberties, any control of government on the life of the people, those governments have not succeeded in winning the popularity in the country. So that is very important. The fact that you can have the freedom to express your views, have the freedom to follow the paths that you deserve and desire, all these are part of democracy. And therefore, we did not choose either of the two blocks, of the power blocks, which existed when India became independent in 1947. You know, the United States led the Western group and the Soviet Union led the Eastern group. One was capitalistic, the other was communist. But Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the great prime minister that we had, he was able to take a path between them, because he thought India would not be stifled by ideological chains. India would move freely and openly forward for the interest of the country, rather than being under the influence of countries of our colonial masters. So that was also a hard path, because we did not have ready-made friends. We had to make friends. We had to cultivate countries through a policy of what was known at that time as the non-aligned movement. 60 years ago, that was established by, among others, by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and various other leaders of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So we should consider ourselves fortunate to have had a long heritage. India has more than 5,000 years of history. Most of the countries of the world today cannot claim that. Many of them are 200 years old or 300 years old. They may be developed countries, but they do not have a grand civilization to back them up. Of course, China has, Greece has, Egypt has. There are other countries with rich heritage. But there is no other country in the world where this heritage has continued unbroken over the centuries. Many civilizations have drowned. Many civilizations have collapsed. But Indian civilization, like the Chinese civilization, has continued for centuries and has given us the leadership and the pathway to the future. So when you decide to dream, be assured that you are in an old civilization which has its values, which has its ideas, which has its plans for the future. Many, many things that are scientifically proved today were practiced in India a long time ago. When you talk about looking after nature, there's a lot of talk these days about saving the climate. We must go back to nature. The circulation of life and the economy must be there. You cannot ignore what was in the past. And therefore, that is the first advantage that you have. When you dream of a future, you can dream it on the basis of all these lovely kind of things that we can have in India, which in many other countries you cannot do. And then After 75 years, we can be reasonably proud that India is very much a growing economy. In fact, it is not an emerging country anymore. It has already emerged as a powerful nation. We are not a superpower, but certainly we are not super poor. We have the resources, the energy, the structure, everything. And if there was no pandemic, I have no doubt we would have done much better than we are doing today. But that is something on which we have no control. So on the one hand, you have this dream. On the other hand, you have the reality. But in between, you can still be happy. Happy with what you have. Happy with what you think you can get in the future. Happy with what you have and what you can think about in the future and things that you work for. So this is the first effort that all of you have to make, is to feel proud of being an Indian, being proud of an Indian civilization. And look at all the systems, structures that we have from the perspective of an ideal world that people had imagined. Of course, Kerala has been particularly imaginative in thinking of an ideal world, because we sing every year when Onam comes of a land where everybody was equal. Everybody was just. There was no theft, no deception. Of course, this is a far cry from what Keralam is today, because today's Keralam has all kinds of problems. But what we have is the ability to dream of a land, an ideal land, where people were happy. People had everything that they wanted, and they did not cheat each other. So even in the reality of what Keralam is today, we are actually dreaming of an utopia, a dream world which Mahabali is supposed to have built. Maybe there was no Mahabali. This was just the dream of a few people who narrated what a beautiful land would be, what Keralam should be in the future. So that is the job you have, is to cherish your culture, your civilization, and watch the progress it has made over the years in every field, spiritual to the scientific. And then, as the inheritors of this culture, this civilization, this country, we need to contribute to it and make it grow further. That is our role. The time that we are in this world, whatever number of years you are here, how much can you contribute to this? Not how much you can grab from it. Because your duty as a citizen is not to exploit life, not to exploit nature, but to contribute to life and contribute to nature. So that is the real spirit behind building what you call a successful life, what I call a happy life. What are the components of this? Happiness you can find even in sannyasa. There are many people who have abandoned everything, renounced everything, and gone to the Himalayas to pray for the rest of their lives. You may not consider them successful, but imagine Shankaracharya, for example. Wasn't he successful? A short life that he had. He contributed so much to the world, so much to the society. Think of Swami Vivekananda. Also, very short life he transformed the Western view of what India is. So similarly, each one of you has a destiny. And that destiny you can fulfill only if you dream about that destiny. And that destiny need not be based on what you think is possible to accomplish, but on the basis of what you need to accomplish for our life. And first and foremost, I'm sure everybody will tell you that the most important thing is to be well educated. And education has many definitions. Some people say education is simply to make better human beings of you. Fair enough. It is to make better human beings of you. And that is why we read about our culture, our society, our leadership, our freedom for struggle, 5-year plans, and the various reforms made by different prime ministers up to Shri Narendra Modi today, who has his own dreams. So all this has to come to you in the process of your education. You need a modern, up-to-date, comprehensive education. And that is what successive governments have planned. But unfortunately, we cannot claim that we in India have an upper hand in our education system. Because ours is not a uniform development. We have good schools, some of them best in the world, and we have schools which do not even have a roof, where school children are bitten by snakes in the classrooms. So imagine the contrast. Imagine the reality of life. And in all these circumstances, you have to survive. I studied in a school where we had to move around depending on from where the rain came to escape the rain inside the classroom. And from there we have now modern facilities, modern schools, not everywhere, but there are many. And that is where you make your first choice. Where are you going to put your money on, as it were? You, after your dream, once you have set up a dream for yourself, then you identify the steps you have taken, or identify the accomplishment that you already got, and then build on it. What is the best way to do it? Every day before you sleep, take 10 minutes out of your sleep and think about what you have done during that day. Did you have a plan for that day? Or were you carried away by whatever happened around you? That's what normally happens. But the best thing to do is to plan your next day. What exactly am I supposed to accomplish tomorrow? If necessary, note down on a piece of paper. And then next evening, before you sleep, think about what I have accomplished. Think about the successes and the failures. And then you will know what to plan for tomorrow. So, success does not come without a system. It does not come without a timetable. It does not come without support from your parents, your friends, your teachers, the society, the leadership. Everybody is giving you hints as to what you can do to contribute. And therefore, even though you have lost a year and a half in the pandemic, this is the time for you to plan for your future individually and collectively. We have a collective objective, definitely. We have a foreign policy, we have an economic policy, we are striving to make India one of the most prosperous countries of the world, but we are all part of that effort. And where do you fit into this system? And that you have to establish yourself. So set your standards. Look at your role models around you, your teachers, your friends. Most of you, the parents themselves will be the role models because they have struggled, they have accomplished something, and their focus is only on you. Your focus may not be only on your parents. You may have other interests. But think of them. As far as they are concerned, their focus is on how you grow up. And that process, they may advise you, they may criticize you, they may tell you that you have not done well. All this can happen. But the only objective in their minds is that you should grow up as an ideal person. And they may dream of things that they could not accomplish. And they would want you to accomplish what they could not. And that is another strategy of the parents. I could not become a doctor. but my daughter should be. I did not become a civil servant, but my son should be. And that kind of dream all of them have. And parents share their dream with you. You don't have to compromise. If your parents' dream does not match yours, you pursue your own dream. And they will understand. And for that, you need to know yourself. What are your capabilities? What are your potentials? In many educational systems, in many parts of the world, this is determined by others for you. You may be surprised to know that in many countries, everybody does not complete school and go to a college, complete that and go to a university, do a PhD. No, that is a waste of time. We have to identify the talent in each one of us. And the parents and the teachers should be able to determine what kind of track they should guide you to. And if there is a mistake, that track has to be adjusted also. But what we need to do in the education system, which we do not have, is a liberal education system, where you can choose what you want to learn and not what you are supposed to learn. We have the system of physics, chemistry, biology, and physics, chemistry, mathematics, and history, politics, and economics. They are all married together as though that is the guarantee of the success of our education system. It is not. We should allow our children to choose what they want. Yes, you want to do physics, but who says you should do chemistry also? Why not do some music with physics? Do not do some art with physics? Why not we do some charitable activities or whatever subjects that get you interested in? Because we don't know what functions you will be performing as an adult. So we should be prepared for all these. And if you identify what you really want to achieve, then single-mindedly pursue it. Do it again and again and again. I know young people preparing for the civil service examination, doing it again and again. And they succeed, maybe the fourth time, maybe the fifth time. Unfortunately, in my time, we had only 2 chances. But now, young people have 6 chances between the age of 21 and 32 to prepare for the civil service examination. So you can really work hard and change your dream and change your trajectory and then accomplish something that you or your parents have dreamt of. And talking of parents' dreams, we must all be knowing the title of Barack Obama's autobiography. The name of the autobiography is My Father's Dream. And this must be true of all of you. When you write your autobiography many years later, you may think that the title should be My Father's Dream or My Mother's Dream, because that is where you end up with. It may coincide with, the dreams may coincide at one point, but most of the time, even if sleeping on one bed, we have different dreams. So we should not try and restrain them. You must try them out. You must try and see how you can acquire the advantages of having an open, choice-based education. So we are moving slowly to that choice-based education. You must have all heard about the new education policy, which has certain features which will enable you to make this choice at different times in your life. At the moment, you don't have. When you go to the college, you have to take one course or the other, which is all tied up together. You cannot change that. You cannot have a totally liberal education. You cannot change course. If you are doing a graduation, you cannot halfway through say that, no, I don't want the subject, I want to change the subject. But the new education policy allows that. They allow you to decide and choose and quit, if you like, at different stages and come back and use the credits that have been given to you. You cannot imagine something more liberal than that. And so the degree will be 4-year degrees are coming, where you can leave after 1 year with just a diploma, 2 years or with a certificate, 3 years with a degree, and if you do 4 years, you go for higher education. And those who do not go for higher education, that's not the end of their lives. There are so many other options other than doctor, engineer, civil servants, and teachers. There are so many professions which are as important as those of teachers and doctors and engineers and civil servants. In fact, what we consider to be menial jobs, or what we consider to be below the dignity of a family person to follow. But those turn out to be much more important than what the scholars learn. You must know that the plumber, the electrician, the contractor, all of them have professions which are as satisfying and as demanding as the white-collar jobs. So don't be stuck to the idea of a white-collar job, because then what will happen is you will pursue a white-collar job for some time, and then you may be forced to do what I call a blue-collar job, and you should be successful in either of them, because you cannot choose many times what the eventual result of your education will be. And that is why the government is now talking about introducing vocational training for students, even when they are in schools. Because we are accustomed to the idea of the parents looking after you till you settle down in life, get married, and sometimes even after getting married, you do not leave your parents and they stick around, hoping that they will take care of you. They will, but this does not happen in many other countries of the world. At the age of 17, you must say goodbye to your parents and look after yourself. And there is a social system which will enable to do so. And we are also building that, because there is no point in doing something without any definite conclusions or hopes. So all this are the new things which are coming. But at the moment, our first priority in the world today is to survive. Because that is something which is very important during the Corona days. Survival physically, because if you do not survive, your dream cannot materialize. So first and foremost, learn to take precautions. Learn to take care of yourself, because nobody else can take care of you. So you must be very conscious of the fact that there is a threat to human existence around us. And unless this is controlled, human activities of the future cannot be predicted. So take your vaccination, wash your hands, wear your masks, keep away from others. The whole concept of being close to somebody is now different. The farther you are away from somebody, you are helping him and helping yourself. So not the old tradition of being close physically, but being close spiritually and mentally, and keep a distance physically is the norm, what is called the new norm after the pandemic. So that should be your first priority. Then it should be pursuing your dream and then succeeding in it even after several attempts. And career guidance is something new, and certainly in Kerala, because we followed advice of the elders and went on. But now it is different. And also your options are very different. When I was in school or just entered college, I did not have many options in front of me. Everybody will say doctor, engineer. Okay, we can try for that. Then some people will say, no, you do history or politics or geography or law and do other things. But everybody was looking for a government job because there were no private jobs. There are no big industries for you to go and join. If you wanted to do that, you had to go to Mumbai or Calcutta or New Delhi. And within Kerala, opportunity is very, very small. Very few medical colleges, very few engineering colleges. And so it was very tough to enter any of them. And so it is not your first choice that you pursue. And now it's a very different life altogether. Because the private sector has grown, not as much in Kerala as elsewhere, but private sector and new educational systems offer you much greater benefits than a doctor or a civil servant or an engineer would get. Because there is competition, there is recognition of merit. Today what you need is not a huge dream about a huge industrial complex. Many things are small in life which make big changes. An innovative idea, a new idea which should fulfill a need is going to succeed. Like all these inventions of Google and artificial intelligence and robotics, all these have come out of the recognition of a need for these services, goods and services. And once that need is identified, you try to create that need, create that answer, and not just sit back and say, I cannot help this. So the idea is that you look around and see what is it that you would have liked to have. What is the kind of service that you like to have? And then find out whether it is there. Or if not, then you invent it. So your invention and innovation should be directed towards the need of the person, the need of the society. And then what you innovate, what you create will be accepted and will be successful. So that is where we have to think what your success will be. And today, you know that the private sector is very significant. There are various opportunities, much better than in the government, in the private sector. If you are an IIT or an IIM graduate, you will get much higher salaries than what a civil servant will get. And similarly, the opportunities abroad for education, for study, have all increased. There was a time when everybody had to go abroad. Pandit Nehru went abroad, Mahatma Gandhi went abroad. But that is not necessary now. Equivalent education is available in India. But then beyond that, if you want to win a Nobel Prize, or you want to have the facilities of modern research, in many cases, people have to go abroad. So don't go abroad as a fashion, but as a part of your planning. What you want to be, and if the facilities are there here, it is better that we stick to those facilities. Many people ask me when they should go abroad to study. First of all, going abroad to study means the presumption is that your parents are rich, or there is somebody in your family who will be able to spend money on you, because foreign education is expensive, at least in the first few years. After that, probably you may be able to get a scholarship, etc. So ideally, today's world, what we need to do is for graduation, there is no need for you to go abroad. In fact, in many cases, the level of graduates and the number of things that they learn is much more in India than abroad at this point. But when you go for postgraduate education or when you go for research, then the other countries provide much greater opportunities. That is why many Indians win Nobel Prizes, not when they live here, but when they live abroad. After Rabindranath Tagore, no Indian has ever won a Nobel Prize living in India. But many have lived Nobel Prizes living abroad. And that is an interesting situation also. So, in planning your future, in deciding on what you want to do, you should be well informed. And that is the whole point of career planning and career guidance. But you cannot follow a guidance or a career with the same kind of plan for everybody. You cannot have a career guidance which suits everyone in the group, because each one of you has a different dream, a different plan, a different objective. So each one of these has to be tailored to your needs. And that is where counseling is important. Talking to people who have the experience, the people who have seen the world, and perhaps be in the professions that you aspire to be in. Get to know these people, listen to them, and understand from them how they accomplish these things in their own lives, and how it can be copied, it can be imitated in a way that you follow the same kind of experience. But that's not very easy again. So, first and foremost, the important thing is to do whatever you are doing at its best. And then try and plan the next second stage. Speaking about myself, I had a very rather limited ambition in my life. That was to be in the Foreign Service. It's not because I knew much about the Foreign Service. Even my father did not know much about it, but what he knew was that this was the best that a young man of India could get at that time. I'm talking about the 60s. And therefore, I had a dream given to me and an objective established by me, and I pursued it without distraction. Because what happens is, when you pursue a dream, when you go forward, you may think that there is this track. If I change the track, I may do better. But most often what happens is, those tracks might mislead you to confusion. And therefore, it's always better that once you have decided upon something, then pursue it and follow things. But at the same time, read about other things, understand about other things, read the biographies of leaders whom you admire. 2 books you must always, for any young person to read, if you want to live in India and to understand India, are the books by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Discovery of India and Glimpses of World History. These are not thick books. These are rather small, 200, 300 pages books. But you must read them to understand what India is and what the world is and what is the place of India in the world. So these are and similarly there are other masterly books in very many areas. And book reading should be a major part of your preparation for it. And then newspaper reading. I do not know how many of you read newspapers, or whether you read it just to see the pictures or to see whether you have won the lottery. But there are many other things in the newspapers. The whole world is in front of you. The information technology is such that doesn't matter what is important happens where and when. But in the morning you have it all in one place. Not just news, but analysis about conjectures, about what is possible to happen, what each leadership is doing, what each country is doing. Everything ready-made in front of you. It is like just having to swallow a tablet. If you spend 2 hours with a newspaper reading everything that is printed there, because there is nothing in the world which is less important than others. There are very many things which are equally important. And if you want to accomplish something in your life, specialization should come only at a later stage. You should be a generalist educator. You should be educated in a general manner. And you should not be saying, oh, this is not. So you should not think that this one or that one is not in your interest. Why should I know about sports? Why should I know who is the best sportsman in India? Important. Because for many people in India, sports is fundamental to their growth. Even if you don't play a game, follow a game, follow the rules of the game, follow the masters who have accomplished, not only in India but also around the world. That gives you a different perspective. You see an article on Ramayana or Mahabharata. Don't ignore it by saying, I'm too young to read these things. I'm now looking for accomplishing many things. But it may be in the Ramayana or Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita that you may find that little nugget of knowledge, that little piece of experience which will change your life. Novels. People ask me, why do we read novels? What is the point? That time I can read the encyclopedia or something. No, because novels are the essence of the experience of different people. It may be real, it may be imaginary, but that is part of the life of many people who have led this country. And therefore, you ought to read biographies, autobiographies of leaders. Certainly Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography you must read, Jawaharlal Nehru, any of those famous leaders and works about them. And that will give you a perspective of various kinds. And then, once you decide on a career or once you enter a career, you must start enjoying what you have chosen. My spirit was that whatever assignment I got, I was determined to enjoy it and make something out of it. In foreign policy, for example, it depends where you are posted. Everybody cannot be posted in America alone. I was posted in America 3 times, but I also had to go to Africa, I had to go to Latin America, I had to go to Asia, because the foreign service or foreign policy is meant for all the countries of the world. So you cannot focus on one country and say that this is alone I do. If you are at the United Nations, you are dealing with 193 countries all the time. How are you going to understand them? How are you going to explain what their mind is like? For that you need study. In the last few days you must have seen all the commentaries that is appearing on one meeting between 2 people, President Biden and President Xi Jinping. Why these 2 people? Because they are leaders of the most powerful countries of the world. So, what you do as a nation has to be acceptable to the other nations. And that's why I often say that there is nothing called an independent foreign policy. You can have an independent foreign policy, sit at home and this is all that I will do. But you will be all alone. Nobody will seek you out. Nobody will want to hear from you. Nobody will want to know what you are doing unless you know what the rest of the world wants and understands. And therefore, open your mind, open your eyes, open your ears, absorb as much as you can. There cannot be a person in this world who knows everything about everything. Even the greatest learners, learned rishis, say we don't know anything. That is how they approach it. Because the more you learn, you will find how much more to be learned in the process. So you are living, however short it may be. People have done wonders in a short period of life which they had. And there are many others who lived up to 120 but did not accomplish much in their life. So it is not how long you live, but how long are you able to help humanity to be greater and to be happier. And so there is no particular formula, as you may have noticed. I'm not telling you do A, B, C, D. I'm just telling you, describing you, the world around us, and how there are opportunities of various kinds which can guide you in the process of life. And nothing should be ignored, nothing should be taken lightly, and everything should be absorbed to the extent possible. And then it's a matter, people say it is a matter of luck, people say it's a matter of good fortune, others may say that this is just hard work. So many explanations for success. But there is only one which will make you happy, is the fact that you have accomplished it. And if you have not realized your dreams, that's not the end of the world. Unfortunately, that is a problem facing young people today. Because when they fail in something, they tend to exaggerate it. Because any setback can be dealt with. Any setback has a solution. So to lose that perspective and to think that that is the end of the world, that is what drives young people particularly to suicides. That may be a momentary feeling of frustration, could be a momentary feeling of depression, which guide young people to do that. But that is for our society a big loss. And that's why the Prime Minister was saying the other day that we must liberate our children from the progress reports culture. Because you're all studying, working hard to get that progress report at the end of the year to be shown to your parents. How confident will you to be go and show it to your parents? Most of us will not be. Most of us will want to hide the progress report somewhere till the last date, and then quietly take it to your father when he has a good mood and ask him to sign on it. But what the Prime Minister said was that, no, we should not make our children captives of progress reports. That should be made irrelevant. That is basically a measuring yard. You are comparing yourself with others to see where you stand in the whole hierarchy of things. Whether you are a 30%, 40%, 50%, 80% student. And that enables you to learn more. But it is not the be-all and end-all of that. If your father doesn't reprimand you and say you have done well, that is not the end of the thing. You have to learn more. There is much more to learn. And so, we constantly assess ourselves whether we have accomplished what we set out doing. And what is it that you do, you must continue to do in order to accomplish things which you have not been able to accomplish in a particular period of time. So, a number of things, but I thought it would be better for me to stop somewhere here, and we have another hour or so which we can use for discussions. But before that, let me wish you all the very best. Being in a college, being in the university is a very exciting experience, and this will be the best part of your life because you have no concerns, worries about anything. You have somebody to support you. But it is when you go out of the universities to the far wider world, and whether you have prepared yourself for that wider world is the real test of proper education. And I'm sure teachers are aware of that, your parents are aware of it, and all of them will be willing to work as hard as possible. You know, a poet compared parents and children with bows and arrows. The parents are the bows and the children are the arrows. How? Because the arrows do not have any strength, any power, any energy in it. If you throw an arrow onto the table, it will just lie there. But suppose you put it on a bow and then pull the bow harder and harder, then the arrows will go straight and hit the target. So you are simply the arrows that are on the bows of your parents. And the more your parents exert themselves to shoot you off to your direction, the better for you. And there's a very good example of how seemingly lifeless, seemingly immobile things get the energy and push forward. And of course, finally, everything also depends on what you consider God. People have different theories, beliefs about God. Some people see them with their own eyes. But have you thought about it? We create gods in our own image. If you want to think of God, you think of a very handsome man or a beautiful lady dressed up nicely and beautifully performing. And so why? What are you doing? You are creating a model for yourself as like a human being, because all gods look like human beings in the end, because that is your imagination. And then you can worship anything that you want. Hinduism that way is very liberal. You can worship a cobra, you can worship a cow, you can worship an elephant, you can worship a lion, because God is there in everything. So in the final analysis, dream, objective, hard work, persistence, quality of character, and finally, profession of your choice. And this is what the normal thing would be. But at any stage of life here, you think of God when you feel that you are not got what you have deserved. Many of you must have read the Bible, the book of Job, the man who suffered the most. And he kept asking, Lord, why me? And that is the question that we'll all ask when we are in difficulties. What have I done to you, my God, that you are doing this to me? God will not answer. You have to find the answer yourself. But spirituality, whatever you call it, whether you call it a God or fortune or fate or whatever you want to call it, the important thing is that there is a power beyond us which controls us. Those who have read Shakespeare will know how many times he reminds human beings, people at large, that there is something in this heaven and earth which we are unable to understand. There is something which determines your future without your being a party to it, without your being an integral part of it. So you cannot plan it that way. You cannot be sure that God will be on your side. But trust that God will be on your side if you do your duty. So this is a lot of advice, a lot of promises. But remember that your future is in your own hands. And at this stage of your career, you should, first of all, as I said, develop pride in being an Indian. Look at the life of the people of India, whether you are able to do something more. Mahatma Gandhi gave us that famous test. He called it a talisman, a test of whether you are doing the right thing or not. He said, when you take a decision, you may be a district collector, or you may be a medical doctor, or you may be an engineer building a bridge. There will be very many moments where you have to take a choice between one or two or three options. And you are not able to make up your mind. Then what do you do? Mahatma Gandhi said, think for a while. And what do you think of? Think of the poorest man or the poorest woman you have seen in this world. A patient, somebody who is afflicted by serious diseases. When you see a person like that in your mind, and then decide whether what you are going to do now will benefit that man. Not directly, indirectly. So if you feel that what you are going to do is going to benefit the poorest man you have seen in India, do it. Otherwise, don't do it. Very wise advice. I don't know how many of us are practicing it. Because that will be a real test as to whether your decision is right or not. Anyway, these are some of the thoughts that I thought I'll share with you. But I'll be happy to answer questions, discuss things with you in the remaining minutes. Thank you very much indeed.